If I agree, how can I consider myself to be a Christian? This is a popular discussion right now. Let's break down both sides, and at the end of the video, you make the call. My whole faith is based on the assumption that Jesus Christ is God in the flesh. But if he never said that he was, why do I believe it? Before this video is over, I'll defend my faith. But let me start by saying no. Jesus never said the words, "I am God here on earth in the flesh." So why does every Christian believe that? When we look at the Gospel of John, there's a ton of places that seem like Jesus is making divine claims, but allow me to be critical. The standard of critique that I'm going to use will be a judicial one. We are looking for proof beyond a shadow of a doubt. Let's see if John can offer that. John 8:58. Truly, truly I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. I have always existed. That is a divine claim. That should be a clear-cut answer to the question, did Jesus ever claim to be God? Jesus the man just made a divine declaration. But did he? Here, Jesus is believed to be referencing Exodus 3:14. In this verse, God is speaking to Moses through the burning bush and is promising him that he will save the Israelites from Egypt and slavery. Moses then asks God what his name is. Why? Moses had fled Egypt as a criminal, guilty of murder, and he had been gone for 40 years. Now all of a sudden he's come back home with a message that God sent me to tell you that he is going to save us from Egypt. The Israelites would almost certainly respond with, which God? Moses needed to know on whose authority he was speaking with. And in Exodus, God responds with, I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel. I am has sent me to you. So when Jesus says, before Abraham was I am, he's claiming ownership of the name that God offered to Moses. Objection! Here's some translation for you. Ego eimi means I am. Many people in the Bible say ego eimi because it literally means like I am or it's me. The blind man identifies himself when he's asked, hey, aren't you that blind guy? Ego eimi. He says, like, yeah, that's me. I'm the blind guy. So just saying ego eimi or I am is not enough to draw that conclusion. Had Jesus been recorded saying, before Abraham was, ego eimi ha'an, before Abraham was, I am the one who is, it would have been a significantly stronger statement, leaving no room for any doubt. But since he didn't, this leaves us with a shadow of a doubt. And believers will say, there's other examples. Sure, John 10:30, I and the Father are one. That's a pretty definitive Objection! Later in John 17:21, Jesus is praying for his disciples, and he prays, I pray that they will all be one, just as you and I are one, as you are in me, Father, and I am in you. And may they be in us, so that the world will believe you sent me. So which is it? Is Jesus one with God? Are we all supposed to be one with God? Are we equal to Jesus? John 14:9, whoever has seen me has seen the Father. Objection! Jesus could just be saying, the way I'm living is reflecting God's love. That's not a declaration. There is room to poke holes in every single statement Jesus makes in the Gospel of John. There's an easy way to cross-reference this. Are any of these stories in Matthew, Luke, and John? They are not. And if these stories and statements and quotes are so important and pivotal to Jesus' identity as God, why did the other authors find it fit to leave them out of their Gospels? This leaves room to say that John is making things up. Because if Jesus did claim to be God in these moments, you would think Matthew, Mark, and Luke would find it important enough to add it to their version of the story. But none of the examples given in this video can be found in Matthew, Mark, or Luke. So how can I possibly believe that Jesus is God? Let's look outside of John at Mark chapter 14. In this chapter, Jesus gives us everything we need to understand that he is God. Enter the scene with me. Jesus has been arrested and is on trial in the high priest's home. Verse 53, they took Jesus to the high priest's home where the leading priest, the elders, and the teachers of religious law had gathered. Inside, the leading priests and the entire high council were trying to find evidence against Jesus so they could put him to death. But they couldn't find any. Many false witnesses spoke against him, but they contradicted each other. Then the high priest stood up before the others and asked Jesus, well, aren't you going to answer these charges? What do you have to say for yourself? But Jesus was silent and made no reply. Then the high priest asked him, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One?" Jesus said, "I am, and you will see the Son of Man seated in the place of power at God's right hand and coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his clothing to show his horror and said, "Why do we need other witnesses? You have all heard this blasphemy. What is your verdict?" "Guilty," they all cried. "He deserves to die." Then some of them began to spit at him, and they blindfolded him and beat him with their fists, and the guards slapped him as they took him away. Wait, but Jesus didn't claim to be God here. He claimed to be the Messiah. No. In this verse, he claimed to be equal with God. Jesus is asked point blank, "Are you the Messiah?" This is not the first time Jesus was asked this question, but it is the first time he answered with a yes or no. But here, in the climax of Mark, Jesus answers yes. Then goes on to say, "And you will see the Son of Man seated in the place of power at God's right hand and coming on the clouds of heaven." When you are standing behind someone, you're advocating for them, protecting them. But when you're seated with someone, especially at their right hand, you're saying to be their equal. He then reinforces this idea by saying that he will come with the clouds of heaven. Riding on the clouds is something that only God is powerful enough to do. No other person, being, or entity in the Bible has ever said to have ridden the clouds. So another way to read this is Jesus said, "I am the Messiah, I am equal to God, and I have God's power." In saying this, Jesus is referencing Daniel 7, in which Daniel receives a prophecy. "As my vision continued that night, I saw someone like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient One and was led into his presence. He was given authority, honor, and sovereignty over all the nations of the world, so that people of every race, nation, and language would obey him. His rule is eternal, and it will never end. His kingdom will never be destroyed." So when Jesus says, "And you will see the Son of Man seated in the place of power at God's right hand and coming on the clouds of heaven," he was confirming that Daniel's prophecy was about him more than 500 years after Daniel received it in a dream. The high priest knew exactly the severity of what Jesus was claiming, which is why his reaction was so severe. Jesus made a divine claim, and Jesus was sentenced to death for blasphemy. But if I'm being honest with you, there's holes to poke in this too. So why do I believe? If God opened up the sky right now and said, "Hey, it's me, I'm God, and I'm real," we would have no choice but to believe in him. And if we didn't have a choice, it would not be a relationship. Honestly, I think there's enough in John to believe that Jesus was God. Just because you can poke holes in it doesn't mean that it's in many ways substantial. In all honesty, I think what's in the Gospel of John is enough. If the Bible gave us 100% of the answers, we wouldn't need to have faith, we would just know. I believe the Bible gives us 90% of everything we need to believe, and that's done on purpose. It's up to us to go the next 10% in faith. That's what I choose to do. What about you?